Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to some more unofficial shotcasts of me playing in the NVidia Geforce Hearthstone Pro AM tournament. As said, these are unofficial. I'm just going to say that again, just to be sure that you actually catch that. We are right now here at the second round with Ikslorin going up against RedNanaki. This is, again, as in the whole tournament here, a best of 5 in conquest mode, meaning that the players have to win with all 3 decks of their choice. Ikslorin has chosen to go for the same decks as also against Freybeer. He hasn't changed them a bit, and that is a Fatigue Druid, yes that's right, a Hand Mage, the wonderful Echo Control made by Sean D9 Plot, and then also an Aggro Fellweaver Mech Rogue made by Trump. All of these are very odd decks, at all they aren't part of the meta, and Ikslorin really just wants to catch his opponent off guard and keep them guessing, and actually winning as part of the mind games rather than anything else. RedNanaki is somewhat more using some more safe-ish decks, but I'm only saying safe-ish and somewhat because there are some very interesting choices in these two. We start off with a Battlemaster Paladin. That is a very normal thing to see. There's nothing different about this one, as I could at least tell. Then we have a Control Priest, though that one did have some minor interesting choices, such as what was it? Lord of the Arena was it? Still a good body, but still not really something that you see normally, as it is not as best or as good as any other 6-drop. And then the very last thing, very interesting, is a Miracle-ish Control Rogue by RedNanaki. And really that is very odd, as this match was played after the GVG, or after GVG was released, meaning that the Gadgetson Auctioneer actually was nerfed at that time. So that is something that you never really see, but still, RedNanaki has a Miracle-ish Control Rogue here. So what both of these players really are hoping for is, for Ikslorin at least, that his Fatigue Druid can go up against the Priest or the Rogue, even if it was only an Oil Rogue. Both of these archetypes are using heavy card draw, which he should be able to use to his advantage with the Fatigue Druid. And his Hand Mage has actually had very good success against Priests, as most Priests at least don't use Light Bomb. It has been more it has come into style around the time of recording, but really at that time the Light Bomb wasn't really used by anyone. So because of that, Priest should normally not have any answers really for that many giants, as this Hand Mage can actually throw out on the board. And then for RedNanaki, he really just wants to have a great time with the Paladin, as also, as I said, against in the Freybeer series, Paladin is really the worst matchup for Ikslorin of them all. And RedNanaki is maining the Priest class, so he's just also going to really looking forward to actually getting the Priest up. Though he is going to choose to use the Priest as the very last deck of his choice, or very last class of his choice, probably in the hopes that if he should actually fall behind, he can use the Priest as a joker for some guaranteed wins, since he is maining that class. A very straightforward strategy. Ikslorin is also doing somewhat the same, as we saw in the series against Freybeer, where he actually chose to go for a Fatigue Druid at first, which is not his main class, neither his main deck, unlike the Hand Mage, which is his main class and main deck, and therefore also the strongest deck he has in his repertoire. So in conclusion, really, I can only say that Ikslorin decks are thematically suboptimal, but they are all optimized for their purpose, with the Hand Mage being the strongest in my opinion. But RedNanaki has some very meta-ish decks or strong decks in themselves, but they all have some very interesting and odd choices. So it's hard to tell really who's going to go out victorious, but it's going to be not going to be easy for any of these two players. And both of these players have now actually chosen the classes for the very first match. It's going to be a Fatigue Druid versus a Battlemaster Paladin. A Fatigue deck versus a mid-range deck. So that is already going to make it very hard for Ikslorin to actually win this match. And on top of that, as I said, this is just Ikslorin's worst matchup of them all. So this one is heavily favored for RedNanaki. And yes, let's just get straight into the game. And Ikslorin actually getting a pretty decent starting opening here with a Wrath to deal with any early drops. Groove Tender, while not as strong as the Cold Knight with the milling, it has a better body, and he can actually innovate a 2-4 out on turn 1, which is pretty good. And on top of that, he also gets the coins, so he's actually in a pretty decent position. He should at least be able to stay alive for quite some times. And Ikslorin and RedNanaki being very well-mannered here with all of these good lucks and have funs. And as I expected actually, and I still also very much agree with this play, Ikslorin chooses to go for the Groove Tender on turn 1, bringing a 2-4 out on the board and also getting the card draw going. Now he is against a mid-range deck, so RedNanaki should probably be able to play something on this turn. Though he doesn't. He is going for the Reinforce actually and just wanting Ikslorin to trade in. But Ikslorin doesn't have to do that. He's just going to go straight with the Groove Tender into the face and just killing the 1-1 with his hero power, because he doesn't have to do anything. He is the fatigue deck. He just wants to wait. That is really what he wants to do. He wants to be greedy. He wants to wait for the win. And a Nerubian egg now on top of this too, with a secret also. Well, the secret is going to be very irritating for Ikslorin, but the Nerubian egg in itself is not very fast. Still very much giving Ikslorin a lot of leeway to in some ways still get ahead here. Ikslorin playing very well around the Noble Sacrifice, nearly gets thrown in the Groove Tender in there, but just in the last moment realizing that he should play around the Noble Sacrifice. So RedNanaki really not having anything done here and established any board control until this True Silver Champion has gone down. Removing the Groove Tender and also healing himself up again and pretty much establishing board control for RedNanaki. And Ikslorin really having nothing to do probably here except for just going for hero power. I don't see any reason to go for the Keeper of the Groove just to silence an egg. He wants to keep that one. He should be wanting to keep that one. I was just silent, being afraid that I would do something wrong. But really, Ikslorin just wants to use the Keeper of the Groove. Well, now I can't even pronounce that thing. But he wants to keep it for the Paladin Legendary that I cannot remember the name of either. So there we see the Muster of a Battle. Ikslorin not having the swipe in his hand to answer this. So he really needs in some way to answer this immediately, or he's going to be in a little bit of trouble. The Poison Seeds won't do anything, so he just has to pick away and hope for something good here. Looking at what he can do. I mean, the Poison Seeds can debuff the buffed 1/1s, but that won't really help him as much in any way, really. So Ikslorin is actually silencing the egg here in the hopes that he can make it ready for a Poison Seeds combo. Okay, I actually somewhat agree with this play. Unlike the game against Freybeer, this Ikslorin actually looks way better. But then again, Ikslorin also looked pretty good until he played that Malorn all of a sudden against Freybeer in the first game. So it's questionable if Ikslorin may actually do the same again. But Ikslorin really getting just ready for a Poison Seeds combo here. And not a secret going down too. Probably you shouldn't have taken the Wrath first, as it could be that this Avenge would probably buff another 3/1. Though it turns out not to be an Avenge, so it's probably a Noble Sacrifice. As it is. Ikslorin could also use the other Keeper of the Groove just to kill one other 3/1, but then he doesn't have anything for that legendary that I can't remember the name of anymore. So Ikslorin rather wants to take the beating, and since he has a Tree of Life, he should be able to stay alive in some way, especially since he has 2 antique heal bots already in hand, plus a Youthful Brewmaster, so he has a lot of healing already in hand. So he just has to stay alive somewhat throughout the next few turns. RedNanaki throwing down another Silver Hand Recruit, actually still with 5 mana remaining, so he could go for the it's not called Cruel Taskmaster, but the 2/5 as we already see on the board. Really, I have to play more Paladin, as we can see. I know nothing about these, and all of these Paladin cards. And yes, I just stopped in the middle of this sentence as I realized I was just really putting myself up for a meme here. Game of Thrones related. You probably already now know what I'm talking about. Okay, Ikslorin top decking Lothep could, if RedNanaki at least wants to in some way trade, it could help, but Ikslorin rather wants to just go for an antique heal bot and then kill one of the 3 ones. He could also have taken the antique heal bot back into hand, but he can also do that with the second one. So it's okay enough to just keep this one out on the board and at least probably pop the shield with on the other 3/3 with it. And that would probably be the best trade for RedNanaki, just to pop the shield for that. Or just go with the Elder Peacekeeper and then just throw everything into the face of Ikslorin. I can understand that play. Ikslorin still, though, has a lot of stuff ready to just kill the stuff of RedNanaki and can kill at least a 1/1. And then also throw down another antique heal bot. Oh! Bolvar for 4 Dragon. Not really a legendary you see that much, but very much really applying pressure here. And since Ikslorin has not been able to deal with any of these minions, it hasn't been buffed as much as you probably would have guessed. But still, a 5/7 on the board is still somewhat dangerous. So Ikslorin chooses here to go for the Naturalize, actually feeding cards again for RedNanaki. So while he is maybe now actually maybe getting the board clear for another turn, it is questionable if he's actually going to be able to stay alive after all of these 3 new cards that RedNanaki just has taken up into his hand. And now Dr. Boom on top of this too, though the board is already so much full that only 1 Boom bot is going to go down. And RedNanaki finally begins actually to trade here. If Ikslorin should actually top deck Starfall, he should be able to actually clear the whole board, but he doesn't. So maybe at this point he could go for a Tree of Life, but there's a lot of damage on this board. 7, 10, yeah, there's 18 damage just on the board itself, bringing him all the way down to 12 again. He would stay alive, but he won't really do as much. He could also try and he could then go for an antique heal bot and after a Poison Seeds, but that would still be 2 times 7, which is 14 damage. If that Boombot is going to hurt too much, he would RedNanaki would still have way too much stuff on the board that Ikslorin would still be able to kill him. So Ikslorin goes for the Tree of Life, as then RedNanaki would have to be able to deal 12 damage this turn just with spells, which is going to be rather difficult for a Paladin. So while Ikslorin is really just trying to hold on here and really just struggling a lot, which was what we all would have expected, he has been staying alive for quite a long time actually. But that is also the only thing that he has been trying to do throughout the last few turns. So actually going for an antique heal bot followed up by the Cold Light Oracle. Very interesting. I mean, if he had gone for yeah, as we said earlier, he has a lot of damage already on the board. Was it like 18 damage we said? So yeah, we said 18 damage. So if he goes for Lothep, he's going to go all the way down to 2 HP. So if RedNanaki just has a weapon in hand, and he should still have another weapon in hand in some way, he would then be dead. So he chooses to go for a Keeper of the Groove to kill one of RedNanaki's minions. Obviously the 2/2 in the middle. and actually just gives up completely, as it seems. And then going for the Cold Light instead, getting a Wrath, meaning that he actually gets the 3-3 kill instead of a 2-2. This greedy play actually turned out pretty well. If I at least did the math correctly, RedNanaki should then now have actually only 15 damage on board. But that plus 6 times, plus 6 damage is more than enough to just kill Ikslorin immediately. That's Stormwind Champion really doing its job. Very interesting, actually, one of the very few interesting cards that I actually didn't realize that RedNanaki actually had in hand here, or had in his deck. So even this one Battle Muster Paladin wasn't completely the normal thing that we always see, but this Stormwind Champion very much fits the theme of all of these tokens of a miracle of a Battle Muster Paladin. So RedNanaki now leads 1-0 to Ikslorin, bringing us into the second match where RedNanaki is going to switch to his very interesting Miracle-ish Rogue, and Ikslorin, not wanting to go down 2-0, is going to switch to his strongest deck of them all, the Handmage. So this is going to be a very interesting matchup, as both players have no easy way to read their opponents. Ikslorin has never seen this Miracle Rogue before, and because it probably is something that RedNanaki has made himself, and RedNanaki probably has no experience playing against this Handmage. Even if he has seen it before, he has no real experience probably playing against it. So this match is probably going to come down to instinct and who's going to come into the early lead here.
You asked for it.
Ikslorin starting out with an Echo of Medivh, an Arcane Intellect, and Acolyte of Pain. Luckily enough, he's going to start off as the second one. He's going to remove the Acolyte of Pain, and obviously also the Echo of Medivh, as he wants to have some early board clear, which he gets with the Flame Cannon and the Polymorph. Well, at least he has the Polymorph then in hand for later, so he doesn't need to dig for it whenever he sees something very interesting coming, or something very dangerous coming up from RedNanaki. So, while it isn't the strongest play with a Polymorph, it isn't really needed since he has a Flame Cannon and now 2 Frostbolts in hand. Ikslorin pretty much set for the early game here. He has the removal for all the time he needs. And RedNanaki just goes for a dagger. Doesn't seem to have a turn 3 play since he is actually going to hit Ikslorin in the face. And Ikslorin actually just going, since he is feeling very safe after this getting hit in the face, just going for an Arcane Intellect. Coining that one out and then also drawing into another Arcane Intellect that he can play the next turn. Getting really the Mountain Giant down to turn 4 play. So RedNanaki would have to pretty much sap the Giant here. Or maybe Assassinate, but I cannot remember RedNanaki having an Assassinate in his deck. So Ikslorin could either go for the Acolyte of Pain. That would though risk the Ikslorin actually going getting just milled by the if he could actually get this Acolyte of Pain. If RedNanaki could hit this Acolyte of Pain 3 times, while just this Arcane Intellect is only going to draw so many cards that his hand is going to be full. Meaning that this Mountain Giant should be able to be should just go down to 3 mana. Will sadly not be able to play anything else on this one last mana, as there's nothing in his deck that it's actually 1 mana. But still, it's going to be at 8/8 on turn 4, something that RedNanaki probably doesn't expect. Though, yeah, if he has seen this right now, he will probably expect something like a Freeze Mage. So RedNanaki, feeling rather safe in this position, is actually just going to throw down this Earthen Farseer just to actually get a 3/3 body on the board and apply pressure. And Ikslorin actually just still staying safe, going for the Flame Cannon, followed up by 1 extra damage to the face. Rather wanting to be safe and then going for Mountain Giant taunt combo, and then taunting it up next turn instead of just throwing down a Mountain Giant, meaning that the Earth Farseer plus 1 extra damage on top of a comboed Eviscerate would be able to kill it. So I very much actually like all of these plays by Ikslorin. RedNanaki again trying to apply pressure, well, not pleasure, pressure by with all of these certain Pingwazis, but sadly Ikslorin has all of these frostbolts for days, so he can just pretty much kill that one and get an 8-8 out on the board that RedNanaki will only be able to deal with a sap. So he's going to chef it, hoping to probably top deck into a sap. With 4 mana left, you could probably also double Eviscerate, though that would be something that Ikslorin would actually be rather happy about, since RedNanaki would then remove most of the cards that he actually has in his deck. Ikslorin getting the Ice Block probably is a good choice here for at this turn to just get the Ice Block out, because he has nothing else really to do this turn. So thinking about taunting up this Mountain Giant and just killing the teacher, just not so that there are not going to be any damn not totems. Well, it's a word that is very close to that. Tokens. Thank you. It's just one letter, but okay, 2 letters, whatever. The point is that Ikslorin really much has this Mountain Giant pretty much safe. He can only be killed by an Eviscerate or an or sap, and the sap would only be what Ikslorin would actually want, because he doesn't matter about something like a sap, which is only a tempo play. Ikslorin is very much used to just winning at turn just before he hits fatigue. So that is fine. For Ikslorin, not Ikslorin, RedNanaki getting this SI7 agent out, killing the giant, but on the other hand also taking 8 damage to the face. But on the other hand, he actually gains board control after a long time again. Ikslorin though is just going to, I would probably in this position choose to play the Mad Scientist, but since the Mad Scientist is going to go get a duplicator on the board, he should probably want to trade away. But he goes for the cardboard gameplay instead, getting the Acolyte of Pain out and just frostbolting the SI7 agent. Also, just keeping board control here, really. And just gearing up for the big combo. Getting the Mad Scientist out would probably also be a fine play. Getting ready for getting ready for to duplicate the Molten Giant. But then on the other hand, Ikslorin would have to get them as that low HP that he could actually first play it. Anyway, so... But since he has actually top decked a Flame Cannon, he would pretty much be able to kill this Kodo. Kill this Kodo without any losses in anything that he has. And can, with all of these cards left, either play the Mad Scientist, but then he will probably again end up duplicating this little Sun Fury Protector, which is really not what he wants. So this is a little bit of a risky play, something that is really not needed, and he has that few cards in hand that the Acolyte of Pain will not be able to actually mill him. So I am not actually really completely agreeing with this play. It isn't the worst play, but it is not the play that I would probably expect. As long as the Mad Scientist doesn't get killed this turn, or the other one getting followed up by after that, it's okay. It seems like the Sun Fury Protector survives this turn alone. So Ikslorin will probably want to polymorph this Dr. Boom. And then also try and kill it off his own Sun Fury Protector before any damn stuff happens with this duplicate. And nothing happens, so he should probably... Actually, I would suggest Fire Blasting the Sun Fury Protector and then not playing anything here. And then just saying, okay, I'll take some damage, but then I'll duplicate a Molten Giant. This is still, if there's just going to be a fan of knives, or just if the boombots are going to do something wrong, this is going to mean that he's going to have 2 Sun Fury Protectors, which is not what he wants. Yes, that would very much be what he should have done here. Maybe actually RedNanaki would just in this place just don't care and actually just go for face with everything. But that sounds like something that would be very weird. And there we go, the duplicate on the Sunfury Protector, what he exactly doesn't want to happen. At least he gets dealt 3 damage, so the Molten Giant is going to be much more cheap. Getting closer to the Echo of Medivh combo here. And yeah, Ikslorin is asked by Freibier from last round if Freibier could actually spectate this game, since he has nothing else to do while waiting for his opponent to come, who seems to be missing. So Ikslorin agrees and letting him watch. Playing at 2 Sludge Belchers in just trying to stop him, getting all of these Sludge Belchers down so that he could actually so they could duplicate those would also be awesome. So yeah, I just cannot see what you want these 2 Sunfury Protectors to use for. You really get more than enough Echo of Sunfury Protectors with this Echo of Medivh, so it really makes not a lot of sense to actually do this. Though if both but if those both Sludge Belchers actually should survive, one Echo of Medivh here could actually be very irritating for RedNanaki, especially after this oil play, which sadly hits the spell, the spellbender, not the spellbender. Jeez, spellbreak. Thank you. Which sadly hits the spellbreaker, meaning that he cannot use it this turn. So if Ikslorin actually should kill it, then he's going to be in pretty bad shape, and he should be able to do that with his silence Sludge Belcher. So it's just the oil is only going to do so much that the Sludge Belcher is going to trade with his Spellbreaker. Not really what RedNanaki probably wants. He really just wants to apply, or just wants to combo into a kill. So Ikslorin is just going to choose to pretty much clear the whole board, followed up with 1 Molten Giant. Probably not what you want to have to do. And with nothing just to do, he probably is just going to sacrifice Sunfury Protector, hoping to just have that one take the damage. But RedNanaki doesn't care. Gets Ikslorin all the way down to 11, meaning that Molten Giant combo can actually happen. And thus it gets an Auctioneer, revealing the miraculous nature of this very deck. Ikslorin really being very confused by now. Now Deadly Poison, the card draw, is going to happen. But Ikslorin thinking what he should do. Flame striking on Auctioneer, denying all of his card draw, is actually something that I agree with. While Ikslorin's Flame Strikes in the series against Freibier were very questionable, to not even just questionable, they were just plain out wrong. This Flame Strike is actually arguably correct. It's very the value in just killing a 4/4 is very much really bad, but on the other hand, denying this card draw is really good. So RedNanaki seems to be just hitting Ikslorin in the face, and probably is going to try and follow it up with a Blade Flurry, I would expect. No, actually eviscerating the Acolyte of Pain, only giving him 1 card in the card draw, but that is more than enough for Ikslorin here. And the Dread Corsair for 1 mana. Well, doesn't matter. Ikslorin is just going to kill it straight away. Playing a Molten Giant, getting a Taunt, getting in some more Molten Giants. And since he already had the extra mana for it, just going for the Sheep Toe, as, well, just getting some extra AoE is more than fine. I mean, there's no reason not to do it. And these Giants and everything that he has it's not going to be detrimental in any way. RedNanaki cannot exploit this explosive sheep on the board, so actually doing this is more than something that I'm content with. RedNanaki seems to be thinking about sapping this 1 giant, meaning that Ikslorin would actually be able to going for a Sunfury Protector on both giants. Okay, so RedNanaki with a Fan of Knives actually being able to kill a Sunfury Protector, but still he has to deal with these 2 giants on the board. And we have already seen, I can at least already remember 1 Eviscerate on the Acolyte of Pain. So it's questionable if RedNanaki really has anything else to do. That's the sap, meaning that RedNanaki stays alive for one extra turn, but the Molten Giant is just going to get down on the board this next turn, and then probably just also followed up by some taunts. So RedNanaki really has to heal up in some way. If he has an antique heal bot, that is probably going to do it. The Azure Drake, okay. That is going to at least in some way keeping him alive. Not keeping him alive, but at least going to in some way... what am I trying to say? Damn, I was going to say something, but actually he's just going to trade away. Playing it safe, he could also just go for face immediately, probably also win, but just removing these just extra spell damage and also the body from the board. Okay, I can understand that. Meaning that really, RedNanaki has nothing here left for until the win. He cannot actually do anything against all of these at 8s, not as a rogue. He can sap maybe once again, but nothing else. He goes for a deadly poison. He still has 7 mana for some other plays, but I still, except if he heals himself, I cannot come up with anything that he would want to do. Ikslorin has an ice block. Ikslorin has already even healed himself, even though that wasn't needed. Since he also has an ice block in his opening hand, or in his hand, not his opening hand, but in his hand. There's the other Eviscerate, bringing Ikslorin all the way down again to 9 HP, and now also Blade Flowing, killing everything except for 2 giants. So with that, Ikslorin wins the second game, tying the series up to a 1-1. RedNanaki really seemingly not expecting all of these giants and very much not having any answers ready for all these amount of giants. And actually just keeping board control, playing this one safe, and knowing actually, unlike last time, when to use a Flame Strike. I'm not going to let that go. Those 2 Flame Strikes last series, those were just so awful. Oh well. So Ikslorin has actually now used his best deck of molds, so he has to go and choose something else. RedNanaki is going to choose to keep his Miracle-ish Rogue, since he wants to use his Priest as the very last resort, since that is his best deck. And Ikslorin thinking that since he saw this Auctioneer, that he actually wants to try and see if he can fatigue Druid his way through to another win. So, and since that, the idea is really good, since this rogue has such a heavy card draw, it should work, but RedNanaki still has probably the better deck here. But if Ikslorin is actually going to be playing this one safe, the amount of comboing from RedNanaki should be okay. He should be alive, as long as he keeps his amount of HP, Ikslorin that is. As long as he keeps his amount of HP relatively high, he should be somewhat alive here. Actually thinking about keeping a Starfall here. Not completely sure about that, since we haven't seen that many tokens from RedNanaki's Rogue here. So yes, I agree with this Starfall removal. Also getting the Loatheb in his opening hand, while he cannot play Loatheb immediately, and he shouldn't, especially against this rogue, play Loatheb turn 5. It's very much a good thing to have in his hand already, since he wants to just keep RedNanaki away from being able to play the combo, at least for 1 or 2 turns. Now also getting a swipe up, and the Acidic Swarm boost ready for whenever the oil combo is going to happen. Ikslorin really having a lot of good stuff here. Very juicy stuff in his hand. Heal, Loatheb, Acidic Swarm boost. This could very much work for Ikslorin actually. RedNanaki just coining out, applying pressure just like last time. And Ikslorin is not really caring, just throwing out a 2/4. And just really fine with just trading this 3 mana a minion for another 3 mana minion and some hero powers. Ikslorin getting into the Malord here. could be a card that could actually be very important, as most fatigue druids don't use Malone. Any fatigue druids don't really use Malone because they just want to have no target for big game hunters or silence. But since no fatigue druids use this, actually using it is a really good play, as no one is expecting it, and it's just actually playing around. No use for big game hunters and silence. So a double play on the meta is the reason why Malone is actually pretty strong in this deck. That is not the reason why Ikslorin had it. He just thinks Malone is awesome. But actually it also makes some sense. Ikslorin thinking about using Loatheb turn 5. Not something that I very much agree with. Though there's no other play for Ikslorin really to do here. You don't want to go for the Antique Heal bot, probably. Yes, the Antique Heal bot will be able to trade with the Earthen Wing Farseer, and will heal Ikslorin all the way up again to 30 HP. But on the other hand, he probably wants to have wants to also bounce this heal back into his hand, since this rogue is very much going to apply a lot of pressure and just have a lot of damage that it can just throw out here. So RedNanaki going with the deadly poison and killing the Antique Heal bot, and now not only having a 3 damage weapon, but also has a 3/3 on board. Actually not having anything to deal with it, but still at 27 HP is more than fine. And top decking a Wrath, well, you don't really need anything else now, really. I mean, you don't need anything important in your hand if you only need one answer and you top deck it. I mean, if you only have a deck with only have good cards in your deck, you can only draw good cards, as some wonderful people say. But this deck very much has some very awful cards in it that only work because this is a stupid deck in itself. But it's a very fun deck in the least, and RedNanaki beginning to draw cards here. Actually, I would like to see Ikslorin going and just checking for how many cards there are. Ikslorin actually, even though that RedNanaki would be able to trade into this Malone, though he would then accept 9 damage to the face, he is going to you shouldn't swipe the F4/4. Thing is, Ikslorin should really just keep the swipe for later, as you want to be as greedy with this thing as possible. So Ikslorin is going to for the Malone play on turn 7. Unlike with against Freibeer, this is something that I actually agree with also at this point, because RedNanaki shouldn't. We did see the Spellbreaker. Actually, since we did see the Spellbreaker and we haven't seen it played yet, this may actually be a wrong play, since RedNanaki very much could just throw down the Spellbreaker, trade away, and Ikslorin has no use out of this Malone, except for dealing 9 damage to the face and trading here. But RedNanaki doesn't seem to have a Spellbreaker, shifting and then eviscerating, killing the Malone, but taking 2 cards in the meantime, and pretty much just keeping Ikslorin away from fatigue phase. And RedNanaki now also just applying pressure, getting Ikslorin all the way down to 21 HP, but a healing charge will pretty much just save all of this. But Ikslorin is going to swipe this 4/4. Still something that I very much disagree with. Mainly just because I already know what is going to happen the next turn. I mean, I know it's somewhat cheating to know beforehand what is going to happen, but I can remember this next turn. There you go, Dr. Boom. Ikslorin, if he had actually waited and been more greedy and just accepted the extra 4 damage with the swipe, and then swipe this turn, then he could have pretty much cleared the whole board and also kill this 1/7/7, and still would have the mana to mill RedNanaki. That's actually an oh dear, RedNanaki being actually very, very fortunate with these boombots. But he is going to mill an Assured Wake and also an Assassinate. The Assassinate, that's an okayish mill, but the Assured Wake is actually what Ikslorin would want, since that is going to be card draw here. So Except if Ikslorin is actually going to get some kind of what am I trying to say? Except if Ikslorin is actually going to be able to get get a cold light. Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. Get a cold light by a top deck. Then he's going to be a pretty bad spot. The acidic swarm boost shouldn't be played yet, for the mere reason that no, please kill the boom bot before you play any minions. So if Ikslorin actually wants to throw down a minion, shapeshift first into the boom bot and then kill the minion. He then also could follow it up with naturalizing the Violet Teacher. We haven't seen any other big targets, so could be okay, more than okay to actually do that. Ikslorin though is going to start off healing himself. I'm more than content with that. So since we have seen the Violet Teacher, Ikslorin is actually just going to go for the lower threat, denying any amount of spells so that we cannot see that many tokens. Yes, I can remember at least a word at some times. But on the other hand, RedNanaki is really lucky with all of the boom bots. Has been spectacular, really. Killing one minion with the highest amount of damage that he could do, and then also dealing 3 damage to Ikslorin's face. Loethep getting killed by a backstab, being pretty much half the turn for RedNanaki, but on the other hand also getting a token out. But if Ikslorin actually gets a swipe top deck, or gets a cold light and then a swipe, okay. Just swipe there, get all the tokens away, kill that one. It goes all the way down to 17, meaning that RedNanaki could probably begin to do some damn combos with the oil. Some oil combos, but still he's just out of reach at this position, I think, to actually be able to be killed by RedNanaki. Also, he has a Tree of Life in hand. Should he be going down to about 10 HP, he should be more than fine. There's a Sylvanas ready to be naturalized, followed up by a Malorn. In my opinion, probably the best play, since the daggers are not buffed in any way. There's no reason to go for an acidic swarm boost again. So a naturalize. Now we still have 9 mana left, so we cannot go for a Malorn and the Dancing Swords, but we can go for Malorn and a wonderful shapeshift, healing Ikslorin up again to 17, milling one of the sharp sword orals. That is really good for Ikslorin, really removing the combo here, and still not having hit the Gadget's Auctioneer.
Your magic shall not save.
There's a Spellbreaker on the second time Malorn has hit the board, and there's the second Assassinate, meaning the Malorn has done a lot of stuff. I mean, he has pretty much paid 14 mana for it, but it has been taking 17, but taking 5 cards or something from that, and RedNanaki has probably paid about around 10 or 12 mana to really remove it throughout this whole game. So I think will probably be more than content with how this has actually turned out as such. Yeah. And Ikslorin still in a very decent position here with 17 HP left. RedNanaki should still not be able to actually kill him. And Ikslorin still has a lot of good board control in his hand. If you just top deck something like a Poison Seeds, he can pretty much kill the whole board. Yeah, so if he actually just top decks the Poison Seeds, and he has already top decked a swipe when he needed it, so I wouldn't put it past him. Okay, so since he doesn't do it, he feels very in a very bad spot. I mean, we can see RedNanaki with 11 damage on the board, actually pretty much killing Ikslorin and just needing 2 more damage. So the Tree of Life, which was a misplay on last time against Freibier, getting played at this turn, just before he was going to be killed. A very good play. Now though, RedNanaki playing the Gadget's Auctioneer, meaning that Ikslorin really not wanting to actually Poison Seeds here, as he wants to milk the Auctioneer, but he probably will have to do so, since he has to deal with this board here. So the Starfall will have to pretty much be used on only 1 minion. He cannot kill more than one more than that. You can kill the Kodo with it, and I actually would have to kill the Auctioneer probably to keep the damage away. He chooses to go for Starfall, followed up by Keeper of the Groove and something. Probably not what he should have done, as he also says himself. But he can Keep Up the Groove, kill one of these minions. Probably the Spellbreaker would be the best here. Or the Auctioneer. I mean, if he had gone for the Spellbreaker, he would have removed the same amount of damage and still be able to milk as much card draw out of RedNanaki. So, actually, again, a misplay by Ikslorin, I think. But RedNanaki seems to be more than content with his position. Still only needing 6 damage here. Getting ready for a dagger, and on top of that also... Still with 8 mana left. As a rogue, very much he should be more than content with his position here. Shivering. Now just needing 4 more damage. And just had some card draw, so he should probably be more than able to do something this turn. Huh. Actually still giving Ikslorin 1 extra turn, so Ikslorin is obviously going to take it. Going to throw down everything he has. Going to heal up. And now is the question, should you go for and kill one of these minions, or should you just keep the extra HP for later? There's actually a difference. At least in Ikslorin's opinion at that point when he played it. Since Rogue really don't have any buffs except for Stormwind Commando, whatever it was called. The one that we saw winning the game in the first match. Ikslorin is actually just going to choose to not kill any of these minions, hoping that the extra HP is going to be more important, as he's not really afraid of any thing like anything similar to a buff to several minions. And that's his 7 Ancient. Being the very last amount of damage that RedNanaki actually needed, meaning that RedNanaki again is in the lead, 2-1 to Ikslorin. Meaning that RedNanaki really having no choice other than actually just going straight for his very last deck, the strongest deck he has of them all. Ikslorin is going to keep on going with his Fatigue Druid. First of all, because that he has had some reasonable success with, or very good success with a mill Fatigue deck against Priest. Actually, he has had probably the best matchup against Priest with any Fatigue or mill deck. But RedNanaki has probably here the advantage, because he already knows what he's playing against. But since RedNanaki, this time at least, is playing very standard-ish, Ikslorin is probably going to be more in a fine spot. As there's not going to be any surprises for Ikslorin. Ikslorin, though, not having as good an opening hand as the last time, having a Swipe and a Groove Tender and Malorne, he really has to remove Malorne here at least, and Swipe probably too. Groove Tender can be kept since it is a pretty good body, and also some card draw. And the Dancing Swords for 4 mana, very good. I like this. Ikslorin having a pretty decent opening, at least. As long as RedNanaki is not going to snowball in some weird way, it's going to be more than fine. And Ikslorin goes for just Shapeshift and straight to the face. There's no other reason to do that, so he's just going for that. Can go for a Dancing Swords next turn, or a Groove Tender, really depending on what he wants. He probably the best play would be a Groove Tender, since he should probably be playing around the ability of RedNanaki to play a Northshire Cleric. And since the Northshire Cleric can be just thrown into the killed by the Dancing Swords and not still stay alive, it's questionable if this was fine. But on the other hand, RedNanaki can play a 3-4 on this turn, which most priests had at this time. A 3-4 at this turn. So he should be able to actually, with this one, actually be somewhat able to deal with it. But he actually chooses not to heal himself, which is actually also a misplay. So at least Ikslorin is not misplaying himself. And that, since I don't know RedNanaki's hand, sorry I cannot show it, I cannot sadly come into more analysis of RedNanaki's play. That is also why we sadly have such a high focus on Ikslorin. Coffee is good. Just sipping a little bit while we wait for RedNanaki to play something. We see a Shadow Madness, meaning that he really removes the 2-4 for Ikslorin and also gets the Shadow, the Dancing Swords all the way down to 2 HP, which can then be killed by Holy Smite. Well played. RedNanaki gets probably somewhat ahead here in the... yeah, RedNanaki obviously gets ahead here in the fatigue ways. And when I say ahead, he's actually behind because he's going to be closer. You know what I mean. So Ikslorin is just going to go down with the Dancing Sword since he has just seen that RedNanaki has no answers to it. RedNanaki going for the Northshire Cleric, followed up by by the Light of Nauru, meaning that Ikslorin can really just... He should probably just trade away or go for a Wrath on that one. Yeah, go for a Wrath on the Light Warden makes a lot of sense actually. Since he just keeps... There's no other really... no other targets for that the Wrath can actually do... Well, hit. Maybe a Wild Pyromancer that some choose to use, but... sadly, the Northshire Cleric can now just be thrown into the Dancing Swords and be killed. Question is if RedNanaki actually sees that or if he's actually just going to try and kill Ikslorin before he reaches fatigue. Because at this point already, RedNanaki should be realizing what Ikslorin is actually doing. He has seen this deck already be played for two prior games. So he should be able to know what exactly Ikslorin is actually doing and should be able to play around it in some way. So the proper play for RedNanaki would in some way be able to sack the Northshire Cleric so that he doesn't get extra card draw from that. But first of all, he's going to Holy Fire the Dancing Swords, ignoring the fact that he has already seen the Malorn. And Ikslorin is just going to... he should probably going to throw his 2-4 into his Northshire Cleric and not using his... or just throwing everything into the face of RedNanaki. The wrong play here would be to use the Groove Tender, or now using the Shapeshift into Northshire Cleric, as he then would still be able to sack the Northshire Cleric. And Ikslorin, since he has no place, just goes straight into trying to... since he has no place, just pretty much kills, hits RedNanaki in the face and does nothing else. And RedNanaki actually has in his deck a Light Warden. Very interesting choice here. And at turn 4, or turn 8, Ikslorin can really just kill everything except the Northshire Cleric with 2 swipes. The play, or the perfect play here for him, since he really wants to kill everything except for the Northshire Cleric, as the Northshire Cleric is really key for Ikslorin winning hard. So RedNanaki again going for the Light of Nauru, getting a Light Warden up, which will then also be able to be buffed by healing the Northshire Cleric, but then now also beginning to draw cards. So Ikslorin can now either naturalize the Light Warden, which will be very weird. So he's going to think about Keep of the Groove with and deal 2 damage to the Light Warden, leaving only the Northshire Cleric on the board. So now Shapeshift into the face of RedNanaki would have been the proper choice. If he had actually doing this is, as I said earlier, the wrong play. RedNanaki will probably now sack the Northshire Cleric since he's probably realizing that he should have done this a long time ago. With each turn, RedNanaki is probably going to realize even more what she has to do to play against this. But we see a Shadow Word Pain played on this 2-4. And now the Lord of the Arena. Lord of the Arena, a big enough target actually to be naturalized, which can then be followed up by a lower threat, meaning that Ikslorin should probably be able to just keeping RedNanaki's hand size so big that he can probably mill even more on top of this. But he goes for Malorn, feeling pretty safe in his position. and not naturalizing the Lord of the Arena. Actually wanting RedNanaki to trade in his Lord of the Arena into his Malorn, but it's just going to silence and following it up with a Shadow Word Death into Malorn. Really the worst Malorn we have seen until now, though it is still 2 cheap cards for 1 not so cheap card, so it is somewhat of a fair trade, but there's no other Shadow Word Death. Yeah, except for Loethid, there's really no other Shadow Word Death targets, and there are no silence targets at all, so that is questionable. RedNanaki, as the very last thing, is going to go for Thought Steal. If he's very unlucky, he's going to end up with something like 2 Cold Lights, which could be very hilarious. But he's also going to fill his hand up all the way up to 8, as we see. So Ikslorin could actually at least burn 1 card by naturalizing the Lord of the Arena. And then he could heal himself up all the way again with an antique heal, but following it up probably with bouncing it back again into his own hand. Still having Big Game Hunter in his own hand so that he could actually kill, so that he could still kill and, what was it? Killing Dr. Boom. But Ikslorin is actually going to choose to still just wanting RedNanaki to trade with throwing the Loethid down and also the antique heal bot. Not completely sure about that. I cannot exactly say what Ikslorin is actually waiting to use his Naturalize for. He already has his Big Game Hunter for something like Dr. Boom. But on the other hand, he just makes so that RedNanaki has nothing to do on this turn except for Shadow Word Deathing the Shadow Word Deathing the Loethid. So I would probably this turn hopefully naturalize naturalize it and probably bounce this one back into hand in some way. And then play it again, pretty much bringing him all the way up again to 30. Though against the Priest, we probably don't care as much about that. And burning an Offshire Cleric, probably the one card that Ikslorin really doesn't want actually to have burned. So RedNanaki now again wants to apply pressure, actually gets a Keep of the Groove down. And now finally sacks the Northshire Cleric and now plays the Lightwell. A very healing focused deck, to be honest. Then when I said standard dish, I probably will take that back. It has actually some very odd twists to it. Having light ones in the deck itself, and now also, as we can see, the Lightwell.
What to do?
So Ikslorin is just going to heal and then bounce back into his hand, getting a 3-2 down on the board. And just probably going to hit the 0-5 so that it doesn't heal RedNanaki's own face, so that this so that this Lightwell is not going to do anything at all. So really just playing with RNG and just going to shapeshift every turn, making sure that the RedNanaki is going to get the least value out of this Lightwell. Though probably if he actually kills or doesn't heal this Keep of the Groove, he's probably going to go and kill it with his shapeshift, which he though luckily heals. So Ikslorin could follow this up with his own Keep of the Groove and then shapeshift, but that seems rather wasteful, especially since RedNanaki has no threat on the board here to speak of. Though with a Sylvanas, you could probably argue Poison Seeds combo, but really just naturalize the Sylvanas, and there's probably not going to be any other threat that Ikslorin has to worry about. Except for Dr. Boom, but he still has the Big Game Hunter for that. So he really just had... So I'm more than fine now with actually another Naturalize here. And the 2 months younger me is at least thinking about it. I don't see any reason to silence that. I don't see any reason to do that. You really just have to silence... don't need to silence Sylvanas in any way. You could deal the 2 damage to the Keep of the Groove, meaning that you get board control. As I do. Okay, so that is actually a really good play, using the Naturalize first so that Sylvanas doesn't do anything at all. And then getting board control by playing this wonderful Keep of the Groove. And now also, with the Naturalize, building another card being the Mind Control. probably being one of the final saving graces for RedNanaki, as he could probably get some kind of something out of Ikslorin with that. But Ikslorin actually at this point could either go for a big game hunter and then slowly pick away on all of these boombots, or he could actually just go for a poison seed starfall, or he could probably be the better thing, just wait for that combo until he's sure that RedNanaki really has played everything he has. So probably shape-shifting into one of the bots and then killing a Dr. Boom. I'm not completely sure about this play to go for the killing Dr. Boom first, as Ikslorin just also says himself. Since, as we can see, that means you have one dead big game hunter, and Ikslorin actually now finally drawing a card himself, getting a acidic swarm boost out so that he again has somebody on the board. Okay. The slide well though is beginning to be rather irritating. It's going to slow the fatigue phase down heavily, but it's also going to make the fatigue phase much more hilarious, as we're going to see heavy fatigue damage with it. And with both Dr. Boom, Sylvanas down, and we probably one or two other cards, it's... Okay, we have Violence Chosen, probably also another Violence Chosen, which are probably going to be one of the few things that RedNanaki probably has as the final big threats for him. And with a Light Warden down now too, and actually also all of these heals, this Light Warden is probably going to be pretty big and pretty scary rather fast. But on the other hand, Ikslorin has more than enough heal. He can Poison Seed Starfall whenever he wants to. He can still feel very much comfortable here and take a lot of beating. Because the thing is that he has only 3 cards and he doesn't have the card advantage, which is very normal with a fatigue deck, since your opponent is going to be the one that is going to have all the fatigue damage. And Ikslorin hits RedNanaki right in the face, hoping that that the Light Well doesn't do anything. But on the other hand, it just turns out that he is actually going to, with that, actually be able to buff the Light Warden even more than it already is, making it now at 9-6 after this Villain's Chosen. Ikslorin really has to poison... Oh dear. Sorry. He really has to poison seeds here. Just should not drink this much coffee, as it seems. But Ikslorin should not have, not except for the drinking coffee, which I'm all of a sudden going on a tangent here. He should not have hit him in the face, as that would actually be some extra damage to Ikslorin's face. But it will not be as detrimental as RedNanaki really just is giving up now with these 2 Acolyte of Pains here. And Ikslorin is just going to go for go for a Cold Light, healing himself, and now also an Acolyte of Pain. Straight in. RedNanaki just pretty much giving up, but just trying to see how much fatigue damage he can really take at this point. We already gone up to 4 with the first turn that RedNanaki already gets fatigue damage with, so this is ramping up really fast, and there's still some bounce in the deck. There's still a Cold Light in the deck, and Ikslorin can also still very much hit on all of these Acolyte of Pains. And now, since he already also heals this Acolyte of Pain, at least he doesn't maximize the amount of fatigue damage that Ikslorin could do. But at this point, there's nothing for RedNanaki really left. So Ikslorin was thinking about going for an antique heal bot, but that would mean that the Acolyte of Pain will not be able to do as much card draw as it could now. And if Ikslorin would actually want to be really bad manners, he can still Healing Touch RedNanaki. But I hope at least that Ikslorin is not going to be that tongue-in-cheek. But RedNanaki, on the other hand, is wanting to actually be staying alive as long as humanly possible here. Still silencing one of these Acolyte of Pains and following it up with giving the other turn. Ikslorin is just going to heal himself and also giving RedNanaki even more fatigue damage. Going up to 7. Going up to 8. And RedNanaki is all the way down to 5. And pretty much one more hit into Acolyte of Pain is going to be the kill on RedNanaki. Another Holy Nova is together with a Shadow Word Madness, nearly going to kill everything that Ikslorin has, but RedNanaki at this point cannot do anything. The amount of fatigue damage is so high that Ikslorin really just has to end the turn, and there's 9 damage to RedNanaki. Being a beautiful match here, Ikslorin taking the win, doing immense amount of fatigue damage, really the most perfect thing that he could really wish for with this deck, and tying the series up to a 2-2, bringing us to the ace match here. Ikslorin having to switch to his aggro Fellweaver rogue, not his own, but the one made by Trump. Just to give credit where credit is due. So the aggro rogue is a very, in my opinion, actually somewhat RNG dependent deck, as you have to be very lucky with your own opening hand, and you have to hope for your opponent to have a somewhat bad opening hand in itself. You really want to try and snowball, and the first 3 or 4 turns are really important. If your opponent can actually hold your start in the first 3 or 4 turns, you are in a really terrible spot, except if you're really, really lucky, which we are going to see in another series here. So, question, though that is actually a little bit underestimating the stack, because it is much better than I may give it credit for. Having a really bad opening, which we are going to see in another series, can be really detrimental to this deck. So Ikslorin has to mulligan correctly and play this deck correctly, but with the mulligan especially, he has to maybe even just keep suboptimal cards as he just to not get a terrible opening hand. And especially against the priest, as they can take a lot of damage with all of their healing, it's going to be very hard for Ikslorin to probably do this, especially since, as we can see with RedNanaki's control priest, it is very much focused around healing. He has, for some reason, as it seems, run into a lot of hunters, though he doesn't have as much taunts as he actually should have had if he wants to deal with all of these hunters. So, but the thing is, though, that RedNanaki probably will expect this thing to be some funky control or miracle rogue, since Ikslorin in all of these games have played very slow, heavy control decks, or even anti-control decks. Anti-control decks, I mean, that is really what a fatigue deck is. But, so the thing is, can Ikslorin actually catch RedNanaki off guard? If RedNanaki actually doesn't see or know what Ikslorin is doing, he may actually mulligan wrong, play the start opening wrong, meaning that he can actually somewhat win in the same way that you win with a cheese in StarCraft. Yes, really, this deck is actually rather cheesy in this series, since it's really just the mind games, hoping that your opponent expect something that is very much a controller thing. So Ikslorin is going to throw away the Micro Machines and the Deadly Poison, keeping the Annoytron, and getting a Blade Flurry, not the best, but getting a Mech Warper, the most perfect thing that could hope for. Though it doesn't get the coin, which will really be detrimental to RedNanaki. RedNanaki doesn't have the Northshire Cleric turn 1, meaning that Ikslorin can play the Mech Warper immediately, hoping though that RedNanaki doesn't have a Shadow Word Pain. That is really what he's hoping for. All the silence that we also saw from RedNanaki. But he doesn't seem to have it. Meaning that Ikslorin can actually, at turn 3, play both an Annoytron and a Harvest Golem. As we can see, really, this is just a snowbally opening already. And next turn, Ikslorin could go for the Cogmaster's Wench, beginning to kill everything there is. And RedNanaki doing a play that I very much disagree with, using the Shadow Word Pain on the Annoytron. Yes, sure, you're going to make expose all of these very important things, such as the Mech Warper. But on the other hand, you very much are going to keep Ikslorin snowballing here. Yes, for this turn, Ikslorin didn't do anything, but Jeeves is 1 mana cheaper, and with an aggro deck, 1 mana is a hell of a lot. So RedNanaki is going to go for he is going to go try and buff his Light Warden up once. Really, that was a bit of a misplay. He was thinking that he would have 1 extra damage dealt to him, so he would actually get 2 Light Wardens up, but he didn't. meaning that he's actually only sitting with a 3-2 on the board. He did Thought Steal, so he should probably have some answers now, but this Cockmaster's Wrench is just going to shut down anything, and he's just going to keep on throwing down everything he has. And even especially with this reversing switch, he can just hit he can just hit with the Micro Machine, then reversing switch, making it having 3 HP, meaning that it will be safe from a Holy Nova. Meaning that everything is pretty much safe this next turn. Problem is, if RedNanaki has the Holy Nova in hand and plays it this turn, he's at least going to be able to kill the Micro Machine, which is going to be very much important. So I think it's a little bit actually gambling on RedNanaki not having an answer, just like he hasn't had throughout the rest of the time. But silencing, and now, as it seems, also Shadow Word painting the 4/4.
Well
A very cool play, but on the other hand, very much not a play that is going to be able to do anything that Ikslorin wants. So Ikslorin can just pretty much hit RedNanaki in the face, followed up with just blade flowing here. After throwing down everything he has, as I said, reversing switch just to play around the Holy Nova. So Ikslorin is, since he is actually going to using the blade flower, he's going to go for Chiefs instead, as he's just going to maximize the amount of card draw, should it actually be possible for RedNanaki to remove everything on the board here. Actually, this is really not the most interesting match, since RedNanaki is just getting snowballed here. And the thing is, for the last series, I had actually some poems prepared, but I forgot about using them. You can still read them in the description of the last match against Freiburg, but this time I at least remembered it. So really, this last match here can be summed up with this little limerick here. I'm really just switching the time here until RedNanaki is dead, or he does something really fancy. A rogue is all Nanaki at first just sees, but what he did not expect was a big cheese. The Shadow Word got denied, the wrong target it destroyed. With an unstoppable snowball he now toyed. For some reason I was completely stopping in the middle of it, I don't know exactly why. But RedNanaki at least slowing Ikslorin down for a little bit, but this 2-1 is just going to be killed by Ikslorin's Stagger Mastery, and then nothing else is going to happen really. Ikslorin is just going to dump everything he has, and then probably just kill the 2-1, and then just go straight for face. He's even going to just trade straight with Chiefs. Okay, he's not, because still there could be a chance for a Holy Nova. Everything on this board could pretty much actually be killed. It could by a Holy Nova, a lot of stuff at least. But then again, this the 2-2 buff is going to again make the Micro Machine unkillable, but by the Holy Nova, and making it a 7-3, making it really, really scary. And RedNanaki, no matter what it does at turn 7, this Holy Nova is not going to do anything. Yes, it's going to kill a lot of stuff, but he's still at 6 HP. Just the Micro Machine alone is going to kill it. And even if he wants to, or even if he has something like another Holy Nova, and if he could play it, there's a Fellow Weaver in Ikslorin's hand that he could just play. So
I must consider.
Yeah, I have nothing else. The GGs are actually just being set by both. And Ikslorin goes in for the win with the Micro Machine, kills RedNanaki, and takes the win in the ace match, getting this one home. Being behind actually throughout this whole match, but in the very end, forcing the ace match and also winning it very, very convincingly. Really just getting an unstoppable snowball up and going. Congratulations to Ikslorin, but also really well played by RedNanaki, who made for some really, really good games. Thank you very much for watching. Thank RedNanaki for playing, and we'll be back soon.